Hey guys, how is it going? So I want to have a discussion about shotguns, and if you guys have been keeping up on the latest updates on Warzone, you know that a bunch of guns got nerfed, buffed, a bunch of changes happened, but shotguns did not get touched. And there's something that really needs to be worked on. You notice the Streetsweeper got, nerfed a few patches ago, but it's still probably one of the fastest TTK guns in the game right now at .367 off the top of my head. And that is with the faster fire rate barrel. And the Gallo is right there with it at around 400. But there's a gun that really isn't talked about very often anymore because it's a Modern Warfare gun, and it is the 725, 7.25, and the Jack 12. Now, the Jack 12 is a gun that I use a lot in Rebirth, and I love the gun. It's an excellent hip-fire build, and the thing with Cold War guns is they don't seem to have a great hip-fire setup, and that's something that seems to be a wildly missing part in Cold War with shotguns, is the shotguns are just terrible as far as ADS, sprint to fire, just in general. They don't act the same as Modern Warfare shotguns. Now, obviously, they have faster movement speed, which is a benefit in their own way, but the actual feel of the guns themselves, the Modern Warfare guns just feel better for some reason, and that's definitely a personal preference of me more than likely. But with that kind of being said, let's take a look at a few of these chokes, a few of these attachments that change the guns fundamentally for what they are. So as I was diving into this, I was talking to my boy Goomy. If you're not familiar with Goomy, go and check out his channel. It is in the link in the description down below. The man is a shotgun god, so check him out if you're a shotgun fan. But as we see with the 725 and the Gallo, the hip fire spread is just obnoxious. But the Streetsweeper and the Jack 12 actually offer a fairly decent hip fire. Now, the Streetsweeper obviously is wildly larger than the Jack 12 as far as hip fire goes, but and the ADS is about the same. But attachments change a lot of these things. Now, the attachments for Modern Warfare guns versus Cold War guns are just completely different. There's no symmetry like there is in Cold War. So there's 3 barrels on the Jack 12 that make a giant difference, and there's 3 barrels on the 725 that make a world of difference in a lot of different ways. And Goomy actually pointed this out with the 725. With the sawn-off barrel, the damage values change. So you're getting 150 damage per hit at any body part, right? So what that's going to actually allow you to do is get up and close and personal and just pop off shots. It's not really going to matter nearly as much because of the spread. The choke and the sawn-off barrel really make things work well in that way. But that's Goomy, and that's his thing. I'm more of a guy looking for bullets to the chest, right? I want that spread to just blow holes through somebody. So the Jack 12 is typically the way that I'm going to go. But it's funny that we both really reach for Modern Warfare shotguns. Now, the difference between the Streetsweeper and the Jack 12 against the 725 and the Gallo is going to be if you are a tac sprint user. So if you're an auto tac sprint user, you really want to go with like the Streetsweeper or the Jack 12 because of the automatic fire rate. I've had times where the 725 or the Gallo just totally screws me, or the Howler even, where you're on a tac sprint, you go to lower your gun, and you raise your gun back up because you didn't hold the trigger long enough, or you just didn't stop your sprint, and it wants to auto resprint again, and just totally screws you in that way, and puts you in a very bad situation. The automatic guns do not have that problem, at least not nearly as bad as the semi-automatic guns, so keep that in mind as we're picking weapons. Now, the attachments on these is where things really get interesting. The Cold War chokes are broken. They work. Okay, well, they do work, but they're not nearly as powerful as the chokes on Modern Warfare guns. As we can see here, the Duckbull is probably one of the better options because it makes the spread go horizontal instead of up and down. As we can see, a lot of these, if we're hitting body, there's a chance that 2, 3, 4 pellets are just going to completely miss, and that's just not good at all. The Gallo has probably the best ADS on this group, which is funny because the Gallo has one of the worst hip fires as an option, which I guess that's probably a balancing point in that way. The V-choke is something that's supposed to increase your ADS, and it does. It increases the ADS quite a bit. But really, versus the V-choke and the hip fire for the ADS and hip fire on the Streetsweeper, it's not that big of a deal. The Gallo, you'll have those odd bullets just astray, as you can see, way off to the right, and that is just no good, especially if you're in Rebirth and there is a full squad in front of you. You're just going to get slapped more often than not. As we look at the suppressors, the one that really surprised me actually was the standard sound suppressor. So the sound suppressor is one that actually reduces effective damage range, but increases your sprint to fire, your, well, basically movement in general. And that's huge for shotguns, because let's be honest, shotguns are a movement weapon. You need to be within about 10 meters to make these things effective, and that is really dang close. All these shots are taken at 8 meters, and the screenshots are taken at 3.5 meters, just to be consistent. So keep that in mind. Is like, take a look at the suppressor Gallo hip fire. You're gonna hit maybe 2 shots to the chest, and the rest are just gonna miss, and you're gonna be super pissed off with the situation, which is why ADS is super important on these guns. And the problem therein lies in that you really don't want to mix anything as far as the lasers and the grips go. Though, I mean, a couple of frames, I guess, might make a difference to you, but it's just not that big of a deal to me. As we start looking at the agency suppressor, there really is no major change, and as Gumi pointed out, there's a lot of times that the damage range just doesn't really work like it should, and that's a significant problem for shotguns because there's no range on these things. And if you're wanting to get range out of these Cold War shotguns, you need to stagger like the SOF designator or the other laser, the last laser, the Ember Sight point. These are things that extend the damage range of these guns, but you're also, with the Ember point, you're going to damage your sprint to fire and your aim down sight speed. So usually I go with the SOF. It's only a 4% gain instead of an 8% gain, but I mean, you're hopefully within that damage range anyway, to where it's not that big of a deal. Now, it's important to note that the Gallo and the Streetsweeper both take 3 shots to kill, while the 725, like I mentioned, Gumi noticed that this thing just wrecks it with 150 damage. And there's 250 health in a player with full armor. So obviously, if you hit both shots with that 725, it's really going to affect somebody. And the choke on the 725 makes a big difference. The gun without a choke is rough. It's rough to say the least. But the Jack 12 actually is in a great position typically. I mean, the hip fire on it is okay. And with a barrel, oh my goodness, the barrel is just totally solid. As far as barrels go, I mean, these are the loadouts I'm really running for these shotguns. If you guys are interested in more shotgun information, be sure to check Gumi out. The dude knows them inside and out, and he has taken very deep looks into the Dragon's Breath, the different attachments for the shotguns, so be sure to follow over there. There'll be a link in the description, as well as a video that should pop up basically any time right now, right? So be sure to click on that and give him some love. But if you guys found this interesting, give it a like. If you like me, give me a subscribe. Have a good one, guys. I will see you around.
Nigga caught me slipping over here, y'all. Fucking hell.